up is our esteemed leader, Anna Krylov. Anna is a renowned theoretical and computational quantum chemist who is also invested in exploring the world beyond her lab, and she will speak on the Academic Freedom Alliance.
Thank you. So I'm very pleased to be at this session because it's action-oriented session. And yes, we have grave problems in academia today, but we also have the agency to fight back. We can fight back, and many talks in this session illustrate what we can do. So I am very proud to present the Academic Freedom Alliance as an example of organizational response to censorship in academia. Censorship of scholars and their research capacity or in a classroom amounts to the suppression of their academic freedom. So why do we care about academic freedom? Francesca Minerva, the editor of the Journal of Controversial Ideas, explained eloquently in her address to our conference. And if you haven't seen it yet, please do. It's a great talk. She says, when academic freedom is under threat, we end up hindering the pursuit of truth. We end up with the distortion of the nature of academia. And when we do not pursue the truth, we end up failing students. Now, this is important. We also fail society at large because non-academics have an interest in benefiting in what academics have discovered when they do their job properly and without restriction. Thus, academic freedom is essential for science to operate, for students to be educated, and for society to prosper and function. As amply illustrated by our conference, academic freedom is under threat and needs to be defended. Academic Freedom Alliance is an organization created in 2021 with this explicit purpose. Its mission statement says, the Academic Freedom Alliance is an alliance of college and university faculty members who are dedicated to upholding principles that are required for scholars to fulfill their vocation as truth seekers and for colleges and universities to be faithful to their mission as truth-seeking institutions. So what is the underlying idea behind it? Robbie George, one of the founding members, described it using a colorful metaphor from the animal kingdom. He says, when zebras are attacked by a predator, they scatter and run away, making each one of them vulnerable. When elephants are attacked, they circle around the weakest and defend themselves together as a group, which makes even the most vulnerable of them safe. Traditionally, academics have acted as zebras in the face of threats to their academic freedom. The AFA is formed for academics to act as elephants. And indeed, there is safety in numbers. It's harder to denounce several hundred of academics than a single one. It's easier to fight back when you feel support of your peers. AFA provides legal support to professors who are under threat and also challenge legally universities who violated the law and their own policies. As our lawyers say about academic freedom, if we cannot celebrate it, we will litigate it. We call it sword and shield strategy. It provides counterbalance to mobbing campaigns. Without such legal action, it is easy for an administrator facing screaming mobs to throw a professor under the bus. But when he needs to weigh the rage of activists versus legal action, then things are different. Here are a few highlights. AFA was founded in March 2021 by 217 founding members, currently has more than 900 members. It is non-partisan single-cause organization. It includes members from the full range of political spectrum, and it defended them against the attacks coming from both right and left. Cases, financially, we funded legal assistance to over 30 professors who were under threat. Of those cases, the AFA achieved a clear victory in over 20 cases. Some of other cases are still on hold or on appeal. AFA also issued 34 public letters to administrators calling out threats to academic freedom. And importantly, AFA has issued 5 position statements as well as joint statement on institutional neutrality together with FIRE and Heterodox Academy. You will hear more about AFA from Howard Muncie, our director, during our sponsor lunch talks. I would like to highlight a couple of AFA actions relevant to STEM, because I am from STEM. It is my experience that STEM faculty are not fully aware of how fragile their academic freedom is. I selected 2 examples from the AFA portfolio to illustrate this. First case, Professor Maitland Jones was teaching organic chemistry at New York University. He is a distinguished educator recognized by teaching awards and author of a textbook. In 2022, students complained that he is grading too hard in his organic chemistry course. That's more than a rule, more of a rule rather than an exception. But what was different is that the university dismissed him. Supported by Academic Freedom Alliance, he sued New York University and won. Second case, Michael Joyner is professor and doctor at the Mayo Clinic. He was threatened, punished, and effectively silenced by his employer for his comments to the media about transgender athletes and concerning the bureaucratic response to COVID. AFA has assisted Professor Joyner from the very beginning of the controversy. The case made it past Maya's motions of dismissal, and it is currently in discovery, and trial is expected early next summer. AFA also issued 6 position statements on issues related to academic freedom, with the goal to help faculty on the ground to advance academic freedom in their home institutions. It is easier to argue against mandatory DI statements for hiring or funding when you can support your arguments by well-crafted statement which explains how such DI statements are at odds with the existing clause. I want to highlight our most recent statement, which is highly relevant to STEM faculty. It has to do with mandatory DI statements as a prerequisite for federal funding. The current situation is that to get funding for technical research in STEM from DOE, NSF, NASA, and NIH, the agencies require grant-seeking investigators to provide plans to advance DEI through their research, to implement it in hiring, and to dedicate time and even funds to it. This paper on the slide, which resulted from the collaboration among several AFA members, documents exactly what is happening in federal funding agencies. Here is just one example to give you an idea, a taste of how it is. To get research funding from NASA, the PI must include inclusion plan. Here is what NASA wants to see in this plan. Request time of funded work effort for team members to carry out proposal inclusion plan activities. Hire inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility experts as consultants to advise the team on the proposed DI activities. And they say consider paying them well too. Request funds to support IP activities such as training of the proposed team. Now, they also say the assessment of the inclusion plan will be based on the extent to which the inclusion plan demonstrated awareness of systemic barriers to creating inclusive working environment that are specific to the proposed team. So, here is an opening statement, opening paragraph of the statement that AFA put together. The Academic Freedom Alliance urges federal agencies that fund research to desist from demanding that plans to advance DI be included in the grant proposals. Widespread requirements to such plans in STEM grant proposals have been implemented rapidly with far too little attention to their potential misuse, their effects on the quality and integrity of funded research, and the threat they represent to academic freedom. We accordingly urge that they will be discontinued for the same reasons that mandatory DI statement in hiring are being discontinued. Instead, policymakers should shift to alternative approaches to cultivating environments free of bigotry that allow participation of all individuals regardless of their identities. The statement further explains why these statements are violating academic freedom and represent political litmus test. It says, though the details of DI requirements vary across agencies and programs, common features include vagueness of their goals and lack of outcome assessments, along with the implicit expectation of allegiance to a politicized litmus test that is, in effect, compelled speech on a controversial issue in violation of academic freedom. To quote a recent editorial opposing mandatory DI statement in faculty hiring, by overreaching, by resorting to compulsion, by forcing people to toe a political line, by imposing ideological litmus test, by incentivizing insincerity, and by creating a circular mode of discourse that is seemingly impervious to self-questioning, the current DI regime is discrediting itself. As STEM researchers, I hope very much that our effort will have an effect and will help to root out DI from federal funding. So that's it. To conclude, we have agency, and we should use it to defend science from ideology. We can reform our old organizations, and we can create new ones, and acting together is essential.